The Orion assembly glittered like a ring of light suspended in eternal night, each segment of its colossal structure pulsing with the energy of 1,000 worlds. Inside its council chamber, air shimmered with holographic projections and faint traces of ozone from translation fields. Every delegate in attendance was a masterpiece of evolution. Creatures of crystal, vapor, and plasma, each embodying the perfection their civilizations prided themselves on. Amid that dazzling display of alien precision stood a single human, upright and motionless, her hands clasped behind her back as though bracing against gravity itself. Ambassador Elena Brooks of Earth had never felt more visible or more alone. They called this meeting an evaluation, but the tone of the room suggested a trial. Elena could read it in the shifting hues of the delegates, in the soft, resonant vibrations that passed for laughter among them. To them, humanity was an amusing novelty, a new species reaching upward with trembling fingers, claiming a seat among giants. The chair of the assembly, a being of translucent filaments known only as the Arbiter, swayed gently within its containment field. Ambassador Brooks, it said, its voice echoing in both sound and light, Earth petitions for permanent membership in the Galactic Coalition. You claim readiness for responsibility, yet your species still struggles with internal conflict and inefficient biological design. Explain why we should not dismiss your request. Elena met the creature's many-faceted gaze. Her throat was dry, but her voice carried clearly. Because despite our flaws, we endure. We've survived conditions that would have wiped out any of your species in infancy. We've adapted to everything our planet has thrown at us. Ice ages, famine, extinction events, and still built machines to touch the stars. A ripple of light spread through the chamber, an unspoken signal of amusement. One delegate, a tall avian creature with feathers like molten glass, tilted its head. You evolved through chaos. How quaint. You still rely on ballistic weaponry, projectiles propelled by explosions. You lack refinement. The word refinement stung more than she wanted to admit. Elena forced a small smile. Perhaps. But when your machines fail in storms or radiation fields, our so-called crude tools will still function. Refinement doesn't mean weakness, Ambassador. It means resilience. The avian's crest flared with irritation, its translator clicking sharply. Resilience is a euphemism for clumsiness. The laughter this time was overt. Even the Arbiter's glow pulsed with faint amusement. Elena's jaw tightened, but she stood motionless. She had known this would happen. Earth's entry into the coalition was never about fairness. It was about proving humanity had value beyond novelty. Maybe, she said quietly, but clumsy doesn't mean incapable. The silence that followed was short-lived. The Arbiter's voice rose again, serene but final. Your request for full membership is denied. Earth will retain observer status until further review. Perhaps in another century, your kind will learn coordination worthy of the stars. A formal statement of dismissal followed, and the great chamber began to empty, each species dissolving into its preferred medium of transport: light, mist, or energy. Elena waited until the last delegate had gone before lowering her gaze. The polished floor reflected her image back at her, small, human, imperfect. She turned and walked out without another word, her footsteps echoing too loudly in the sterile corridor. Her shuttle waited in a private dock, its metallic frame almost quaint compared to the sleek constructs around it. As she boarded, her aide asked softly, "Shall I prepare the return coordinates to Earth, Ambassador?" Elena hesitated before answering. Yes, but first, open a secure line to the Defense Directorate. Highest encryption. Once the link stabilized, she leaned closer to the console. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but her eyes gleamed with determination. They laughed at us again, she said. They think our weapons are toys and our reflexes a joke. Maybe it's time they saw what humans can do when underestimated. She ended the call and sat back, watching the stars stretch into streaks as the shuttle entered faster-than-light transit. The hum of the engines was steady, familiar, comforting in its imperfection. Far from the glittering corridors of the assembly, on a frozen world known as Tundra 9, Sergeant Marcus Hale steadied his rifle against a slab of ice. The wind screamed over the cliffs, tearing through his insulated armor, but his breathing remained calm and measured. A tiny spark of warmth fogged the inside of his visor each time he exhaled. His target was a practice drone, 2 kilometers away, half buried in snow and nearly invisible in the storm. Hale adjusted his scope manually, the analog dials turning with satisfying resistance. He didn't trust the targeting algorithms. They lagged in high interference. He preferred instinct. When he squeezed the trigger, the shot was nearly silent, swallowed by the storm. A heartbeat later, the drone's core burst into a plume of frost and shattered metal. A voice crackled through his headset. "Bullseye again, Ghost. You're making the rest of us look bad." Hale smirked. "Maybe you're just aiming too clean." The voice laughed. "Still using that relic of a rifle? You know, plasma's more efficient." "Plasma doesn't work when the air freezes solid," Hale replied, ejecting the spent casing. The brass shell tumbled into the snow, steaming faintly before disappearing. He gazed across the white expanse, with a horizon blurred into the sky. Somewhere beyond those clouds lay stars filled with creatures who thought humans clumsy. Let them think it. As he packed up his rifle, a transmission alert blinked on his wrist display. "Incoming message from Ambassador Brooks, Priority 1. He opened it, shielding the holographic text from the wind. Her words were simple but sharp. "They've mocked us for the last time. Stand by for orders." Hale closed the display, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "Orders, huh?" he murmured. "About damn time." He slung the rifle over his shoulder and turned toward the base. The storm howled louder, but beneath the wind's fury, he thought he could almost hear laughter, the echo of a galaxy that didn't yet understand what humanity truly was. It wouldn't be laughing for long. The alarm reached Tundra, 9 in fractured bursts of static, distorted by magnetic storms. Sergeant Hale sat up from his bunk, coffee still steaming in his hand, as the emergency channel cut through the background hum of the base. The message was brief and bleak. Valoran consulate under siege on Frostvale 3. Hostages taken. Council assets unable to respond due to atmospheric interference. He didn't need the follow-up order. The look exchange between him and his comms officer, Lieutenant Sora Han, was enough. They both knew this was their kind of mission, the kind everyone else called impossible. "Suit up," he said, his voice steady, low, and absolute. Within minutes, the small human detachment was airborne in an aging dropship that rattled like a loose bolt in a hurricane. The Council had long abandoned Frostvale 3 to its storms, but humans thrived where logic faltered. Hale's team moved with practiced precision, each of them trained to rely on instinct where sensors failed. Outside the reinforced windows, lightning crawled through the clouds like veins of liquid fire. Sora monitored the navigation console, her eyes flicking between dim screens, struggling to keep connection. Storms thickening. No drone support, no satellite locks. "We'll be blind once we enter the lower atmosphere," she reported. Hale leaned forward, strapping his rifle across his chest. "Good. They won't see us coming either." The alien chatter intercepted through Council relays confirmed what he already suspected. The Valoran guards were pinned, their superior plasma rifles useless in the interference. The raiders, scavengers bred for harsh climates, had adapted well. They used magnetic blades, crude but effective, and they knew the terrain. It wasn't technology that would decide this fight. It was endurance. As the dropship descended, Hale reviewed his gear. The rifle gleamed under the dim cabin light, every component meticulously checked by hand. No energy cells, no fancy optics, just tungsten rounds and a scope calibrated through muscle memory. His breathing steadied. He had learned long ago that in storms like this, calm was a weapon sharper than any bullet. The ship shuddered as it broke through the cloud cover, buffeted by winds that would have torn lighter crafts apart. Sora gritted her teeth, forcing the manual controls. "LZ's a kilometer west of the consulate ruins," she said. "That's as close as I can take us." "Close enough," Hale replied, unstrapping. The rear hatch opened to reveal a blinding wall of snow and wind. He stepped into it without hesitation, the storm swallowing him whole. The ground crunched beneath heavy boots. The world had shrunk to shades of white and gray. The horizon invisible, the air thick with static. Hale's visor displayed only fragments of data, constantly flickering. His squad formed a staggered line behind him, their silhouettes ghost-like against the storm. They moved in silence. Visibility was barely 5 meters, but Hale could feel direction through intuition alone. Every gust of wind carried information, the slope of the terrain, the rhythm of movement in the distance, the faint metallic tang of alien weapons firing. Somewhere ahead, the Valorans were dying, their so-called perfection rendered useless by weather that didn't care about hierarchy. The first body appeared half buried in snow, armor split open, plasma rifle frozen mid-cycle. Hale knelt, brushing frost from the insignia. The Valoran's eyes were still open, clouded by frost. He closed them gently, whispering to no one in particular, "Not your fault. You weren't built for this." The comms crackled. Sora's voice, faint but clear. Scanners show heat signatures. 30 meters ahead, clustered. Must be the hostages. Hale's pulse slowed instead of quickening. He signaled the team to hold position and crawled forward on his belly, rifle tucked tight. The snow muffled every movement, every breath. Through the blinding gale, he spotted them. 2 Valoran officials tied near a collapsed tower, surrounded by 7 raiders. They wore ragged armor that looked scavenged from different worlds, movements efficient and predatory. Hale's scope flickered, static crawling across the lens. He wiped it with a gloved thumb, exhaled and focused. The leader stood out immediately, taller, thicker carapace, giving orders through gestures rather than speech. The storm was his ally. No weapon relying on energy could function cleanly in this interference. That was why Hale's ancient rifle mattered. He adjusted for wind, the kind of calculation no AI could handle amid chaotic magnetic shifts. His mind mapped the bullet's invisible journey through the storm. Trajectory, density, delay. He wasn't thinking of equations, but of rhythm, like timing a heartbeat. The shot was more intuition than science. Behind him, one of his soldiers whispered, "Sir, we could wait for the storm to pass." "It'll pass over them first," Hale murmured. "And when it does, they'll start killing." He steadied his rifle on a rock, fingers flexing to test the trigger's resistance. The sound of his breathing filled his ears, slow and even. For a moment, there was no storm, no galaxy, no council, just a line, a target, and inevitability. He fired. The recoil nudged his shoulder, gentle as a sigh. The sound of impact came seconds later, a dull, wet crack. The raider leader jerked back, collapsing into the snow without a word. The others hesitated, scanning the horizon for a threat they couldn't see. In that hesitation, Hale's team opened fire, short bursts, efficient and merciless. Within minutes, the site was silent except for the howling wind. He approached the hostages carefully, cutting their restraints. One of them, shivering violently, stared at him through slitted eyes. "You humans," it stammered, disbelief mixing with relief. "How did you?" "Ballistics," Hale interrupted, offering a thermal blanket. "Old trick. Works fine in the cold." Sora's voice came over the comms, strained but triumphant. "Extraction ship inbound. Council's got a live feed. They're watching Marcus." He didn't look at the camera drone hovering nearby, its lens barely functional in the storm. "Let them watch," he said quietly. "Maybe they'll learn something." As the hostages were lifted toward the hovering dropship, Hale stood alone for a moment, the snow already covering the fallen raiders. The wind carried fragments of the council's distant chatter, confusion, disbelief, reluctant admiration. He stared into the white void, rifle resting against his shoulder. "They called us clumsy," he muttered, almost smiling. "Guess we just stumble in the right direction." Lightning tore through the clouds above, painting the snowfield in harsh blue light. He turned back toward the dropship, leaving behind nothing but footprints already fading into the storm. The galaxy was starting to notice. The footage of Frostvale, 3 played across every hollow screen in the Orion assembly, slowed and magnified until even the most skeptical delegates could see the truth. A single human shot, a metal slug propelled by chemical reaction, had pierced the heart of the storm and ended a battle their precision technology couldn't even begin to measure. The room that once roared with laughter was now silent. No one dared mock the primitive anymore. The Valoran ambassador, the same one who had called humans clumsy, sat frozen, his luminous crest dimmed with unease. Around him, whispers rippled like distant thunder. Ambassador Elena Brooks stood in the center of the chamber again, this time unaccompanied by humiliation. The holographic replay hovered above her, Sergeant Hale's silhouette in the blizzard, a ghost of iron will and perfect stillness. The council chair's voice trembled through the still air. Ambassador Brooks, our analysts confirm this was no automated act. There was no AI correction, no targeting software, no predictive algorithm. Its many eyes pulsed faintly as it added, "How did he calculate the shot?" Elena folded her hands, calm as ever. "He didn't calculate it," she said. "He felt it." The words unsettled them. Feeling was not a concept they trusted. Machines calculated. Species refined by millennia of design obeyed precision. Yet here stood a representative of a chaotic planet who claimed that instinct, not logic, had prevailed where perfection had failed. The Valoran ambassador rose, his voice brittle. "One act of fortune does not redefine a species. We cannot assume." "It wasn't fortune," Elena interrupted quietly. "It was humanity distilled. We adapt faster than any machine because we're flawed. Every error we make teaches us how to survive the next." She looked around the room, meeting each alien gaze without flinching. "You evolved in comfort. We evolved in conflict." For a moment, the chamber lights flickered as though the station itself hesitated to process her words. Then the council chair spoke again. "Your Sergeant Hale demonstrated a skill unmatched by any known combatant. The council recognizes this. Earth is to be reclassified as a strategic defense partner, effective immediately." There was no applause, only the hum of acknowledgement, an uneasy respect born not of admiration, but fear. Elena inclined her head. "We'll accept the partnership," she said, "and we'll earn it, as we always do." Later, in a small communication hub far from the Grand Chamber, Hale sat in front of a grainy video feed. Elena's face appeared, her expression softer than her public composure ever allowed. "You're famous," she said, trying for humor but landing on exhaustion. "Half the galaxy's trying to understand how you made that shot." Hale rubbed the bridge of his nose, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. "Tell them I got lucky." "Luck doesn't curve bullets through magnetic distortion," she replied. "They're calling it instinctive computation. I think it's something simpler." "What's that?" "You cared enough not to miss." He looked away, embarrassed by the compliment. "Didn't feel like care. Just felt like doing my job." "Sometimes those are the same thing," she said softly. "Either way, they're listening now." He nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. Back in the storm, the whisper of snow against his visor, the calm that came before the shot. That moment had stripped everything unnecessary away. No politics, no arrogance, just survival and precision born of desperation. Humanity's essence, captured in a single breath. Elena watched him in silence for a moment. "They'll want more demonstrations," she said finally. "They'll test us again. Harder this time." "Good," Hale answered. "Let them." The screen flickered and went dark as the transmission ended. He sat in the dim light of his quarters, the hum of the bass a low pulse beneath his thoughts. Outside, the storm continued its endless wail. For all the council's grandeur, the galaxy was still ruled by the same truth it had always been: adapt or die. Humans just happened to be better at the former. A soft chime echoed through the room. "Incoming transmission, high priority." He opened it without hesitation. The message wasn't from Earth this time. It carried the encryption seal of the council itself. The voice that followed was unmistakable. The Valoran ambassador, his tone cautious but tinged with respect. "Sergeant Hale, the council has reviewed your performance. We would request your participation in upcoming strategic evaluations." Your methods challenge our understanding. We wish to observe them further. Hale let out a slow breath, almost a laugh. You mean you want to learn how to miss less? There was no answer, just silence on the other end. Then, quietly, we wish to understand how humans find success in failure. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Start by letting yourself fall once in a while, he said, then ended the call. The base lights dimmed to night mode. Hale stood, stepping toward the observation window. Beyond the frost-covered glass, the tundra stretched infinitely, shimmering beneath the aurora's pale glow. It was beautiful in its brutality, much like humanity itself. He lifted his rifle, checking the scope out of habit. Not for practice this time, but for reassurance. The metal felt cold and alive under his fingers. A soft ping from the comms console broke the stillness. A message from Elena scrolled across the display. They see us differently now. Don't let it change who we are. He typed back, wouldn't know how if I tried. He looked through the scope, out toward the distant horizon. Somewhere out there, the galaxy that once mocked his kind was rethinking its definitions of strength. Not every victory came from power or precision. Some came from grit, the stubborn refusal to yield even when reason said it was over. That was humanity's gift and its warning. The wind howled outside, carrying the sound of moving ice, a low, resonant tone that might almost have been applause. Hale adjusted his stance. I pressed to the glass, as though aiming at the stars themselves. I can see you, he murmured, the words quiet, almost reverent. And you're already dead. The aurora flared, brilliant and wild, lighting the snowfields in shifting waves of color. Hale lowered his rifle, a faint smile crossing his face. Somewhere far above, unseen but watching, the council recorded every flicker of data. They would analyze his breathing, his stance, his heart rate, but they would never capture the essence of what made him human. Some things couldn't be measured, only felt. He turned from the window, the light fading behind him. Tomorrow would bring new missions, new scrutiny, maybe even new wars. But for tonight, the storm outside felt almost like peace.